Mini episode 1140 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FDH Lounge. This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris. We've got a fun one for you today. We are breaking down the 2019 AFC West, taking a look ahead here. And again, this is part of our preview series for the 2019 NFL, which we have been doing with good friend and fellow FDH Lounge dignitary Raymond Smalley, the original Platinum Smalls himself, the proprietor of the fine sports and pop culture blog Always Googling Atlee Hammaker. You can check that out at alwaysgooglingatleehammaker.blogspot.com. But in the meantime, he is here in the lounge. We made the hot tag because, again, good friend and fellow original FDH Lounge dignitary Chris Galloway unable to join us for the previews as he was for the last 2 years. We send our best wishes to Chris in the interim. But good to have you back in, Raymond. And now we get to break down all things AFC West.
Absolutely, and I would be remiss if I did not remind you I'm like Che Guevara with bling on.
Well,
so for those of you listening to our AFC previews, that is 3 out of 4 where I have worked in the Jay-Z reference.
Yes, and if that means that you also murder bourgeoisie and homosexuals the same way that Che Guevara did, then we best not cover that, perhaps, lest the authorities be listening. But when we look at this division here, I am going to flip-flop what was in version 1 of the Fantasy Football Draftology 2019 guide, available on the main page at fantasydrafthelp.com. My version 1 predictions here, I had the Chargers eking past to win the division, the Chiefs taking the wild card, but it has not really been the summer of the Chargers. We'll get into that subsequently here, or as my brother likes to say, subsequently. But first of all, we'll take a look at the Chiefs, who, again, I was kind of down on based on, again, what was a bad defense last year, losing a few more parts. Yeah, gaining a few, too. Frank Clark in there. The Honey Badger, who you mentioned in a previous segment, who the highlight of his NFL career thus far has been an excellent guest performance in the Season 7, Episode 1 of The League. He was pretty funny in that. But now he's got to go play football for his Chiefs secondary. Offensively, we know what they can do, but Tyreek Hill is one TMZ video away from being out of the league for good, and it's 50-50 that might be coming this year with what a knucklehead he is.
How is he not out of the league already?
Well, not as of when we're taping this, although I'm probably dating myself, because probably from now to the time this gets posted, Tyreek Hill may be out of the league, in which case it will expose that this was in the can for a brief period of time. But I've always been a Steve Spagnuolo guy, so I have to think he might be able to do more with the parts than they did defensively last year. We'll see. More or less by default, I am restoring Kansas City to first in the division this year.
I would completely agree with that. The combination of Frank Clark and Tyreek Hill on the same team. Thank God Kareem Hunt is not there. Rick, have we confirmed if female fans are allowed to attend games this year in Kansas City?
Well, they shouldn't be within swinging reach of either of those two guys.
No. We are going to get into a situation where Kansas City becomes like Saudi Arabia. Women can only come to games if they're in the company of a close male relative.
Well,
I love you, Saudi Arabia.
And they seem to be adopting what appears to be the radio motto of a Cleveland radio legend. That motto that he seems to have is "It's good to beat your wife."
Now, this is in complete seriousness. As my late father said to me once, the right thing very rarely, if never, has consequences. Doing the wrong thing always has consequences.
Yep.
And, we're going to talk about the football in a minute, and yes, he is an outstanding wide receiver. They're an outstanding team. They are an AFC Championship contender, if not a Super Bowl contender. However, when they announced, we're looking into this, I read that as we are going to do everything we possibly can to keep him on this roster because we want to win. And ultimately, whether it's him, whether it's Frank Clark, who I know a little bit about because my then girlfriend was at Michigan when he was thrown off the team for beating the crap out of his girlfriend, I will still watch the NFL. You will still watch the NFL. Friends of ours will still watch the NFL. At the end of the day, though, you cannot defend their actions, and you cannot feel very good as a sports fan watching, knowing that there are organizations who see what they've done and think, I'd build my team around those guys.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it brings me back to being a fan of the Browns back at the time Botch Davis was the coach and bring some of the bad citizens that he brought onto the team. Those are the kind of things. Plus, they were a bad team most of the time he was here anyways. It's not fun to root for a team when they have bad characters like that. It really kind of taints it. But, again, the Chiefs, they should be right around where they were last year. It would take... probably being even luckier for them to get back to the AFC Championship game, for them to get as far as that. And spoiler alert, I don't see that happening. A team that I would have seen being ahead of them in the division here is the LA Chargers, but they have had a bad summer, ladies and germs, between Melvin Gordon deciding that he is elite, which I'd use the same air quotes with him that I do for Joe Flacco. But between that and deciding that he needs to be paid a lot more, the loss of Derwin James for a period of time here. Again, in the segment I talked about with the AFC South, the concept of force multipliers. Derwin James is a force multiplier on that Chargers defense, a great player who makes others great around him. He's going to be down a good part of the year. And this is a year where they were really, really gearing up. The window for Phillip Rivers is getting shorter and shorter here. He can't afford to have any wasted seasons here. I still see them as a playoff team because they are very talented on both sides of the ball. But this is shaping up to be yet another wasted opportunity for the Chargers in terms of not going to the Super Bowl.
I would agree with you. I'll talk about the two rosters kind of side by side because I got into obviously the non-football. In terms of the football of Kansas City, what can you say about Patrick Mahomes that hasn't already been said by Shannon Sharp twice?
Yeah.
I love him. Mecole Hardman can be a special player. Travis Kelce is absolutely the best tight end in this league. Running back is a huge question. Offensive line I really like. Defense, defense is a legitimate question to me as well because, you basically, I love the addition of Tyrann Mathieu. Eric Berry was a leader, not there anymore. Obviously, swapping out Justin Houston for Frank Clark. I look at that defense and I think to myself, again, we talked about the Colts greater than the whole, the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. I look at the Kansas City defense and I'm thinking, okay, there are definitely some parts there. Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Alex Okafor, Reggie Ragland, Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Thornhill, definitely some parts there. But, I don't know that they can necessarily mesh. You put their roster up against the Chargers. they are every bit as good offensively in Los Angeles as they are in Kansas City. Yes, I would take Mahomes over Rivers, but Keenan Allen, Travis Benjamin, Mike Williams, them in combination, Tyreek Hill's a burner, Mecole Hardman, like I said, I really like, but I would take Allen, Benjamin, and Williams over Watkins, Hardman, and Hill.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd take Travis Kelce. For the people that argue, oh my God, the loss of Melvin Gordon. Yeah, I remember a bright January day in Rick's new favorite city of Foxborough where they didn't have Melvin Gordon. And what happened? Had they had Melvin Gordon, I can say with every confidence, I'm certain that the Patriots still take them apart. So, is it a loss? Yes. Is it you lost everyone? If you said to me, who can ill afford to lose a back more, the Dallas Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott or the Los Angeles Chargers with Melvin Gordon, that's an easy answer. It's Dallas Cowboys. I still think, even without Melvin Gordon, the Chargers, they're better defensively when you talk about Brandon Mebane, obviously Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, Thomas Davis comes over from Carolina in the middle. I agree with you. Derwin James is not a loss. Derwin James is a chasm in the middle of that defense. But I still like Rashawn Jenkins and Casey Hayward on the back end. Defensively, they are better than Kansas City. Offensively, I think they're just as good as Kansas City. And I would take Austin Eckler as a two-back over Damian Williams as Kansas City's projected starter. So, do I like Kansas City in the division? Slightly. But I would not be shocked if Los Angeles throws up an 11-5 and takes that division.
Yeah, very possibly, and that's how I saw it shaking out initially. And if it goes that way, because again, they're going to have Derwin James back for, it looks like, at least the better part of the second half of the season. Gordon's not going to sit out the whole way, I don't think, because he's got no leverage here. So my guess is he compromises at some point, probably in a face-saving manner for him. He comes back. Look, maybe he'll be a little refreshed. Maybe, again, a little less tread on the tires of the season could make them a little more dangerous in January. It wouldn't be the first time something like this has happened, but they got to get there first. And my early sense is that they're going to get there as a wild card as opposed to the division winner that I originally had them as. One of the things... Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you haven't seen the schedule, Sunday, December 29th, Kansas City and Los Angeles. How fun could that potentially be?
Yeah, and that looks to be the prime time game, I would guess, certainly. I'll say that without even knowing the rest of the schedule, because that is already becoming one of the most fun rivalries in this league. And again, two teams that are fairly dissimilar in a lot of ways, not least of which the ages of their quarterbacks, but the consensus top two teams in this division. There's a consensus bottom team in this division, which leaves us with the other team that's there, the Denver Broncos. I got them for 8-8. I think it's going to be a lot like most of the recent Denver seasons where they're just going to kind of be there. I don't think they're... Again, defensively, they should be a very good team. Vic Fangio is an awesome defensive mind. I think... I don't know how he's going to do as a head coach, because when you're a defensive-minded head coach, especially in today's league, you got to have somebody on the offensive side of the ball who can pick up the slack with the quarterback. And again, they're not going to be going in right away with a young quarterback. They're going to be trying to ride out the aforementioned Joe Flacco here. So again, having Flacco sort of helps put me in mind again of an 8-8 record. That's what I got them slotted for. Like I said, I think defensively, they sort of have a high floor as far as how bad this team can be overall, because you still have Von Miller and a bunch of other good parts there. Offensively, I think you have some respectable skill position talent, at least in places. I'm a big fan of the breakthrough that Lindsey had last year. I think he can do a lot for them there. So it's just, squinting, looking at them, I just see 8-8.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that assessment. You talk about good skill position players, but young skill position players. Philip Lindsay is on the rise, but, is he a top halfback in this league? I don't think so. Cortland Sutton I really like. I love Jake Butt coming out of University of Michigan. Offensive line to me is a question mark. Defensively, a lot of good pieces. Still Von Miller, Josie Jewell, Bradley Chubb, who, despite the fact that Denzel Ward has worked out, Bradley Chubb at number 4 there would have looked really good in brown and orange. Don't you agree, Rick?
Yes, he would have. And by the way, and I'm glad you mentioned Cortland Sutton because, again, that's somebody that, if you remember back to draft time in 2018, that I was relatively high on. And I think he's got a pretty good ceiling there in Denver, but he doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to be there yet. Just sort of, again, emblematic of them being an 8-8 team. He's not as good now as he's going to be 2 years from now.
Like I said, Noah Fant, Jake Butt, Cortland Sutton, Philip Lindsay, good talent. Joe Flacco, yes, he won a Super Bowl. Baltimore is that rare franchise who has won multiple Super Bowls with 2 quarterbacks that I wouldn't give you the price of a chicken bacon ranch at Subway for less than $8, by the way, for those of you who do not eat at Subway.
Yeah.
Defensively, that's a top half unit in this league, but 8 and 9. We talk about Tennessee as beige. I look at Denver, and I don't have one of those little cards, with all the different hues that Sherwin-Williams hands you. All right, but I would say just down from Tennessee's color is Denver. You're right. They are the middle of the road and park.
You know what? And as somebody who has sleep issues, I don't know if those two teams are going to play this year, but if so, I got to get me a copy of that game tape because that should do it for me, man. Just pop that in every night, and I'll be good to go.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I can tell you that Sunday, October 13th, bizarrely, as a 4:25 game on CBS because I guess there was nothing better that day.
That must be the worst AFC schedule in the history of the league if that's the 4:25 game.
The 4:25 game for October 13th, which would be that would be week 6, folks. The 4:25 Giants-Patriots Thursday night, that'll be fun, or it would have been fun right around the time of Super Bowl 46. Okay, you have Cowboys. Okay, so it is the B storyline, if you will. Titans-Broncos, as the, for those of us who cannot get Dallas and New York. And by those of us, I mean, I hope merciful God that is all of us that can get Cowboys just that day.
Yeah, if that is the national game, we can all look forward to seeing a tweet from Darren Ravel the next day. NFL outdrawn by the Test Pattern Channel in New York City yesterday. So
yeah, Titans Broncos. There are reruns of Teen Mom OG that I would watch before Titans Broncos.
Yeah, things I'd rather watch than Titans Broncos. That could be a podcast unto itself. And that, by the way, another name you mentioned there, and I'm glad you did, as far as talent, Jake Butt, again, still really trying to pull through from yet another knee injury here. But I'll tell you what, that's the thing here where, again, you're seeing a lot of 2 tight end offenses in the league. Philly has done that a lot in recent years and kind of made some explosiveness out of it. That guy, if he can get back to what he was, him and Noah Fant would be really, really excellent because Noah Fant is one of the next big things in the league at tight end in and of himself. If you can add a Jake Butt who is even a fraction of what he was at Michigan to that, that is going to add a little bit of a turbocharge anyways to that Bronco O.
I mean, could you imagine? And look, obviously they need to elevate from Joe Flacco at quarterback. The elevation may not be Drew Lock, as it turns out, if you're looking at his thumb. But if you could get if you can get the quarterback situation right, you have Cortland Sutton as a and who could be a legitimate one in this league. Philip Lindsay running behind Fant and Butt on either side.
Yeah.
My gracious, would that be fun to watch?
It would, and that could really be an excellent offense. Again, a lot of it. If there were people speculating that Jake Butt could actually be a roster casualty here, but it looks like his rehabilitation is coming along enough to where that won't be the case. And again, I'm rooting for that scenario just because it would be interesting and fun to watch with all the things that they could do there.
As I look at their roster, I mean, with Fumagalli right now, Troy Fumagalli listed as a second-team guy, with a couple of with Devontae Booker at running back listed as a third-team guy. Yeah, I'm hoping for that as well. I'm hoping that Jake Butt can make that roster as well, because like I said, I think that would be a lot of fun to watch. But you're right, I could see him squarely on the bubble.
Yes, but again, based on talent alone, you'd think that he is.
Based on talent.
Yeah.
I mean, based on talent, he's a first-round guy.
Oh yeah. He'd be a no-brainer to stick on this roster. A roster that doesn't have a lot of no-brainer first-round guys, maybe more than it did a year ago, but a roster that's still a hot mess in so many ways, as Hard Knocks is illuminating, unsurprisingly. The Oakland Raiders. A year from now, they'll be the Las Vegas Raiders, and in the interim, between Antonio Brown burning his feet in a freezer, of all things, and all the other things going wrong, he's crying about the kind of helmet that he's going to use. Wah! I want my unsafe helmet back. Wah! Everything going on there. All of the goofy personnel decisions being made on a regular basis by Mr. Out of Touch himself, John Gruden. I will give it up to Chris Galloway, fellow FDH Lounge dignitary, and the gentleman originally scheduled for this segment before we went to the bullpen in excellent fashion with you, Smalls. But Chris was the first one on this show to call it. He said early on, when I was still hedging about John Gruden, he was not hedging. No pastels. It was just bright shades of color in his pronouncement that John Gruden was going to be a historic level flop. And thus far, Chris has been so far ahead of the curve on this. Again, a better talent roster than it was a year ago. Josh Jacobs is the hot sleeper candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year in a lot of quarters, and it may happen. But I still got him down for 5-11, and if I may paraphrase what I said about the Dolphins, I got to squint at that schedule to see where the 5 wins come from.
The autumn wind is a pirate, staggering in from sea. With a mumbling song, he walks along, swaggering listlessly.
Very good, and I'm sure we could get an approving tweet from the ghost of John Facenda.
Derek Carr, Derek Carr is the girl you date when there's no one else available. He's like the girl you met on Match.com.
You'll have to narrow that down. Just joking. You're
absolutely right. Rick is on eHarmony. Derek Carr is...
Kayfabe, Smalley, kayfabe.
Wait, or you have plenty of fish. I can never keep track.
Oh, well, we all know the stuff I got is just out there for catfishing other people, but let's keep it moving.
Derek Carr, is he your starting quarterback?
Yeah.
If someone better came along? No.
I mean,
no.
He's serviceable.
No.
He's
Look, he's good enough to win a Super Bowl in this league. As I mentioned a minute ago, so was Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Are the Raiders within driving distance of winning the Super Bowl? They could all attend the Super Bowl theoretically.
Yeah. If they had tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Doug Martin, I like, but I don't love. Tyrell Williams, I think I would line up Chris Galloway as a number 2 wide receiver, and he would be better than Tyrell Williams. Antonio Brown, when he's right, it's fun to watch. Rick, let me ask you a question. When's the last time he's been right?
He hasn't been, period. And by the way, this is strictly a Northeastern Ohio reference, but Doug Martin, at this stage of his career, the only thing he's good for is spawning the fantasy football team name Doug Martin Superstore.
Very nice.
Yes.
Offensive line, to me, is a great question, and don't talk to me about Trent Brown, because people forget Trent Brown wouldn't have even been a starter on that New England Patriots team last year, but for Isaiah Wynn wrecking his Achilles in camp.
Yeah.
They way overpaid for him. So offensively, I look at them as a bottom 8 unit in this league. Colton Miller on the other side, to me, is a bottom 8 offensive tackle in terms of starters in this league. The one person you pay attention to there is Antonio Brown, but I also pay attention to car wrecks along the side of the road.
Yeah.
Defensively, I love Maurice Hurst coming out of Michigan. I felt like Vontez Burfict, Cleveland Farrell, I thought they reached for huge. Tahir Whitehead, not the biggest fan. Brandon Marshall, best days are behind him. Secondary is they're that red light when your phone gets below 10% battery. All right.
Yeah.
I look at that team. You say 5-11. You're right. And again, it is relative, because I look at the Miami Dolphins and I think, all right, you would have to take a couple of steps up to be what I consider a flaming hot mess. Then I look at this Oakland roster and I think, okay, if Miami is consensus the worst team in this league, what does that make Oakland?
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. As a Fish fan, I'd rather be where the Dolphins are at, because they at least have a plan and a sustainable future. The Raiders are they're just fumbling along. Gruden is unfireable. I mean, he's still owed, $80 million after this year? So
80, 10 years, $100 million. Listen, Rick, if I would have said to you, you can give John Gruden 10 years and $100 million to coach, or you can give 10 years and $100 million to Frank Caliendo to listen to him do John Gruden for that decade.
Yeah. Well, that was the worst Las Vegas-oriented financial decision since I put it all on red that fateful night back at Caesar's Palace back in the day. So, that's something.
That was the worst Las Vegas decision since Steve Wynn stood outside the dunes and said, "Captain of the Britannia, ready, aim, fire." Listen, 10 years from now, when the city decides maybe this was not a good idea, can we get Steve Wynn back to recreate that? Can he stand outside that stadium and say, "Captain of the Britannia, ready, aim, fire"?
Yeah, well, what I want, I mean, that's what's funny. The only things that we want, as far as it goes for the Raiders, are just things to enhance the entertainment value of it. I want Jason Bateman reprising his great broadcaster character to do Raider games, just so he can say 10 times a game. That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
And that's, you're right. He is unfireable. Say what you will about Al Davis. However, he won 3 Super Bowls. He was an innovator in this league. Yes, toward the end, and you and I could talk about a very famous story from the San Jose Mercury News.
Yeah. A story like that, it's got to be true.
Do I need to tell people that story?
Tell the story, yes.
So this was the draft that featured both Michael Crabtree and Darius Hayward-Bay.
Yeah.
And who have coincidentally had similar careers, but we didn't know that at the time.
No, we did not.
And according to the story that I read, that I subsequently told Morse about, the Oakland Raiders used to prepare as part of their draft preparation. I don't think you can say prepare and preparation in the same sentence. I just did it anyway.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Exactly. They used to prepare a list of every single player in the draft 40 times. So it's the morning of the draft. And everybody, coaches, token GM, everybody in the organization is in the room. You got the magnets all up on the wall there, your entire draft board. And in walks out.
Wait, what's MC Hammer doing here? Wait, what?
If I may quote a Nationwide commercial, he was in Life Comes At You Fast, Ricky.
Yeah. Speaking of fast is the moral of the story.
Yes, fast is the yes. And recently, looking at Mark Davis, he would be better off on Slim Fast, but that's a subject for another.
I think getting a proper barber is his first concern, but that's, go ahead. I'm sorry. Does Tecumseh make an article that can shear off hair? But I digest.
Yes, you may tweet us at the FDH Lounge. Al Davis walks into the room. He looks at he picks up this piece of paper, looks, and the number one speed guy on there was Darius Hayward-Bay. He looks at the token GM. If he's there, we're taking him, and walks out of the room. And again, Michael Crabtree and Darius Hayward-Bay went on to have very similar careers, but we didn't know that at the time.
Yes.
So that is the story of how obsessed, I guess we will say, that Al Davis was with speed, and or, it's like the story of the 2008 financial negotiations, where they didn't want John McCain anywhere near it because he was going to scuttle the deal. I mean, can you imagine being the Raiders organization draft morning, hoping that your owner doesn't walk into the room?
Yeah, having somebody in maintenance who's assigned to get him stuck in the elevator for a couple of hours. Imagine having a franchise like that.
And I'll give you one other story really quick. Have you ever heard when Sean Payton was interviewing for that job?
I don't think so.
So, obviously everybody listening, and you're familiar with the fact that, like, NFL coaching interviews, they're not when you go in to apply an Office Max, okay? These things take 5, 6, 7 hours.
Right.
And there's obviously, the natural human being, you get hungry and, you get thirsty over 7 hours.
Right.
So, it is late at night. They are interviewing. Sean Payton is being interviewed by Al Davis. And, Al says, "Are you hungry?" Sean says, "Yeah." He calls an assistant. He's like, go out and get me 10 orders of McDonald's Chicken McNuggets, and I also want the coleslaw from there.
Coleslaw?
Now, I know what you're thinking. I know what everyone listening is thinking. McDonald's doesn't make coleslaw. The assistant was smart enough to know that Al Davis meant Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay.
And so, Sean Payton is sitting there in the interview. Al Davis is eating coleslaw from Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they are sharing McDonald's Chicken McNuggets. That was Sean Payton's interview with the Raiders.
Amazing that he didn't end up there.
Shocking, don't you think?
Yeah.
Keep in mind, folks, he went to New Orleans post-Katrina.
Yeah, I have to ask, are you paying royalties to the estate of good old Paul Harvey for now you know the rest of the story.
No, but based on we are at the end of the AFC, Ricky, I will say to you, good day.
Well, I will say my AFC champion is the Indianapolis Colts, as we covered during our AFC South session that we did here. And in the final installment here, this is the fourth one out of 8. When we get to the NFC West, that is traditionally when we go through and give the picks for the season here. So I'll let you know how I see the whole AFC shaping out at that time. But I do have the Colts as the AFC champions for this year. Would you like to make your pick, or would you like to hold it back for then, Smalls?
I will make my pick now, and I will ask you, and Rick, are you very high?
No, I am right at room temperature here. Give us what you think.
Well, we've worked a lot of references in here, and I'll work in one more professional wrestling reference. Rick, I will say that whether you like it or you don't like it,
I don't.
learn to love it, because it's the best thing going today. Bye. AFC champion for the fourth consecutive year is America's team, the New England Patriots.
In the words of a phrase I once invented, happen ain't gonna. But we'll talk about that more when we go through the AFC exact picture in our final installment here. I'll let you know how I see it shaping out, and you can give us your indication of how it's going to shake out then. But in the meantime, thank you, Raymond, for another excellent breakdown here, this one on the AFC West, and thank you, everybody, for checking out this mini episode of the FDH Lounge.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, Waitresses, Strippers, Bartenders, Garbage Men, Janitors, Microwave Popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and the periodic table of elements.